Nietzsche seems to be getting a bit of airtime at the moment amongst people. Was he Hitler's
Mm.
favourite philosopher?
No, he wasn't. Well, he was only because his sister kind of co-opted him. It's a very sad story, Nietzsche. Really, he went kind of mad in his later years. We don't entirely know why, because you can't necessarily date diagnosis, but it looks like he might have something associated with syphilis. That's the best guess we people have. So he went mad and he was put in a home, and his sister was the one looking after him. And so some of his later works, there is an element of kind of like how much should we interpret them as being actually Nietzsche, and how much is, well, A, Nietzsche insane, and B, Nietzsche's sister editing his work. And so Hitler went to visit Nietzsche's sister, and she says that you, Hitler, he's talking to Hitler, you are the Ubermensch, the Superman that Nietzsche was talking about. So Nietzsche never said that. Hitler's sister, who was literally a card-carrying Nazi, she signed up to the party. She thought that Hitler was that, and of course that's why Hitler would like to, and some of the Nazis like Nietzsche. But I would say that a lot of Nazis didn't like Nietzsche, and there were other philosophers of fascism that people liked better. Because he does give a few examples of the Ubermensch in his works. He talks about Napoleon, and you can see probably commonalities between Nietzsche and between Hitler and Napoleon. But then he also mentions somebody like Jesus as an Ubermensch, which of course is the archetypal difference. Also is the opposite of someone like Hitler. So no, he's not. But I have to say that Nietzsche is so intentionally opaque, so poetic and so lyrical in what he says that it is very easy to read what you want into him. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why he is so popular among the internet, is that people look at what he says and they say, well, that's me, he's right there and stuff. But actually, if you read the next passage, he almost intentionally contradicts himself. And that's why people love reading him, because he is interesting, he's exciting, he's provocative, but also he wants us to think as the reader. He kind of wants you to make up your own mind. So in some ways, he's presenting a menu of options, and he wants you, the reader, to decide it. But I did a post about the book called The Gay Science recently, and in The Gay Science, he just basically takes the piss out of everything, literally everything. He likes to go about God and about kind of philosophy of the day, about politics, about Christians, about Jews, about Stoics, about you and me, the reader, as well. He's mocking everyone and everything. And that kind of tone runs through Nietzsche, that degree of kind of like, don't accept everything else that exists, make up your own mind. And I think, yeah, that's why Nazism kind of jumped upon him. But that's Elizabeth, his sister. And also Bertrand Russell, if I'm honest, as well. Russell wrote this great book called The History of Western Philosophy, and he was very scathing of Nietzsche. But then that's of course when Russell was writing that, he was writing it in the end of at the end of World War II. So he was very sensitive to these kind of fascist ideologies, and if they are there if you want to see them. So again, a rambling answer, but he's not a Nazi, but he can be interpreted as being a Nazi.
And that Uberman, which Hitler clung so dearly onto, what did he really mean when he was writing it, if he didn't mean Hitler?
Well, it's somebody who crafts their own story or crafts their own life. It's somebody who will not accept the established truth, talk about truth earlier, and what other people are saying, and actually thinks and does and moves for themselves. That's all that really can be said about the Ubermensch, really. And it's existential hero. And he wrote a book called Beyond Good and Evil, where even the ideas of good and evil that we've inherited, right and wrong, you need to think about those yourself. It doesn't mean that you should do evil. It doesn't mean you should murder and kill people, but he just said that, sometimes think about it. Sometimes maybe murder is what you should do. But that's him. And he said, everyone has to make up their own decision themselves. And that's as I say, that's all can be said about it. And of course, that has very different flavors. Sometimes that could be a Hitler or a Napoleon. Sometimes that can be a Jesus Christ or a Gandhi. Sometimes it can be a Jordan Peterson. Sometimes it can be a Greta Thunberg. It can be across the whole spectrum of people who are deciding the course of their life. And people like to say that they are the Ubermensch because they have decided what Nietzsche meant. But actually, I think Nietzsche would just say, like, just stand up and make your own decisions. I think he would say, and certainly don't do things because that's what the Judeo-Christian understanding says, basically. So he's very scathing of the tradition that we've inherited. To going back to what we said earlier about this kind of cult of Christianity, if they don't do that as well. But sorry.
Probably one of his famous ideas was the death of God. And I love the story about this bathroom where, because it's quite fun to write God is dead on bathrooms. I guess if you're a rebellious teenager. and on the bathroom it said, "God is dead," in quotations, hyphen Nietzsche, and someone wrote underneath it, "Nietzsche is dead, hyphen God." But what did
Which
he?
ironic, yeah. Which is
What did he
ironically
actually
Nietzsche's
mean,
point.
though? Yeah.
Well, that's ironically Nietzsche's point, really. That Nietzsche, just like any philosopher, he's joined now this litany of dead philosophers, and you should take his word with a grain of salt as much as anything else. And he is just as fallible and just as interpretable as everybody else. In fact, he wrote, I think, the opening of Beyond Good and Evil. I think it must be. I think it's Beyond Good and Evil. It's called On the Philosophers, where he basically says all philosophers are just writing their own autobiography. They're writing their own what they think, and you can always say to a philosopher, "Well, that's what you think, and this is what I think." And yeah, Nietzsche thought that, and so God is dead. Is often loved by atheists because they think he's talking about literally about God, about a bearded man in a sky, and there's an element of that. He is talking about religion. He's talking about classical theology. But more than that, he is talking about absolutism. He's talking about the idea that there is an answer, there is a one way, there is a should, there is a you have to live like this. There is answers written in stone on tablets that you'll find in the Middle East somewhere. That's just nonsense, he thinks. There is no absolute. And if you read the passage at the time, it's a very different tone to how it's pulled out, because we often assume that God is dead. It's like, hooray, cheer, let's go to the hills and let's do what we want, make our new utopia and stuff. But actually, Nietzsche puts his finger on the pulse, where he realizes that actually this is a very terrifying moment. This is a scary moment, that because it's like we've been led by the hand, like we're children and our parents are holding our hands all of this time. And that's comfortable. It's nice. It's easy to be told what to do and right, go here, wear this, say that. Let's do this now. That's an easy life. But then suddenly, when that hand is gone, that hand evaporates. You're left on your own in the middle of a world which makes no sense, and the rules are scary. And there are people who are big with big sticks, and there are people who are lying and fighting. And so, what do you do then? And here's this passage where we said we're tumbling. We're without up or down. We don't know what's going on, and so. I honestly, I'm not the first person to say this. Alistair McIntyre says it as well. It's almost cliche now, but I think we're still grappling with that problem. There is a God-sized hole in society that we don't have any absolute, any certainty, any right and wrong, and deontology. I think that means we are kind of floating in freefall a little bit, which is what he diagnosed. But I don't think there's any medication offered really. So that's what God dead means. It means there is nothing that we can cling to which tells us how to live. We have to decide for ourselves. And for some people, that'll be okay. The Ubermensch, they grasp that moment, they enjoy it. For some people, they'll be terrified and they won't ever really make peace with that fact.